Hello YouTube, this is Archistler13. I'm here today to talk about something that just came to my mind, or at least it did when I was first writing this script back in December. It's a principle of geometry called tessellation. Tessellation is when a single shape or a group of shapes can be used repeatedly to cover an area without there being any gaps or overlaps, although I will just be focusing on shapes. But tessellation is an important concept to know regarding, well, basically any sort of pattern design, whether it's for art or another circumstance like engineering. That's the word I was thinking of. Well, maybe not engineering, but you get my point. Of course, not all shapes can tessellate. In fact, I feel confident enough to say that the vast majority of shapes can't tessellate. There's no way to put circles together without having a gap, and the same goes for a shape like a regular pentagon. Like this. Or, yeah. But I have sort of come up with a way to determine whether a shape can tessellate. But first, why don't we just look at some shapes that can? First, let's start out with the shapes that people can agree immediately would be able to tessellate. Those are the equilateral triangle, the square, the rectangles of any dimensions, and perfect hexagons. And let's throw in all right triangles as well. However, I believe that all triangles can tessellate, as can all quadrilaterals. But for now, I'll just stick with all parallelograms. Now, I am pretty sure that none of you need to see any sort of example of squares and rectangles tessellating. Square tiles and rectangular bricks are everywhere. The perfect hexagons, I'm sure that gamers have most likely seen a hex grid in some game. And the equilateral triangles, I feel that people would accept that one easily as well. Now, one thing that I feel I must add here is the idea of adding shapes or placing them on your quote-unquote field. If you place any number of copies of a shape next to itself and it adds to a shape that is known to tessellate, then that is a tessellating shape. Additionally, if a shape can make a larger version of itself, then once again, the shape can tessellate. And here we get into the triangles. The right triangles, that's easy. You take two copies of a right triangle and they can form a rectangle. But you can also take 4 copies of any triangle and make a triangle with lengths twice that of the original triangle. But that's just covering shapes that can tessellate. What about my claim about a way to test if a shape can tessellate? Well, it all has to do with angles. Specifically, it has to do with the sums of the angles. For a shape to be able to tessellate, there must be some way for the angles to add up to 360 degrees. This is why a regular pentagon will not tessellate. Each angle has a measure of 108 degrees. Even if you put 3 of them around the same point, there will still be 36 degrees left. Although, going into 3D, you can still make this, but that's besides the point. And this is also why the equilateral triangles, squares, rectangles, and perfect hexagon will tessellate. The triangle, all its angles are 60 degrees, and 6 of them can completely fit around a point. All rectangles have 4 angles of 90 degrees each, and 4 will fit around a point. And the perfect hexagons have angles of 120, and 3 will fit around a point. And So now I want to get into my belief that all quadrilaterals can tessellate. Firstly, the parallelograms that I haven't already talked about, the rhombus and other parallelograms. Firstly, they can fit together much like the squares and rectangles can, where you can just copy the shape and move it without any rotation like you'd need for triangles. But they can also fit in more interesting ways. Rhombi, or at least the rhombi that have angles of 60 and 120 degrees, can fit together like this. And while other parallelograms with the same angles, like it may not be quite as easy to fit together in fun ways, but it can be done, although it's hard to do it in a visually pleasing way. But before I get into all quadrilaterals, I want to give a special mention to these two shapes. The classic trapezoid and this kite. The trapezoid can fit in a variety of ways. Most notably, however, it's one half of a perfect hexagon. The kite, on the other hand, is a shape that seems engineered to be a good fit. The top angle is 120 degrees, the side angles are both 90, and if you're doing the math, you know that the bottom angle is 60. What this means is that if you put 3 together with the top as a center point, you get a triangle. And if you put 6 of them around the bottom point, you get a perfect hexagon. And if you put the side angles together, you just get a mess. So at the end, we have a nice collection of shapes that can tessellate, but I am not done yet. I hadn't been intending for this to be a mini-series, but this video is running a bit long. And by the time I'm recording this, I have already written 3 scripts, and I am still not done. So it's going to be at least 4, possibly even 5. But in part 2, I'll be explaining. I can't say this word. I'll be explaining my claim about all quadrilaterals being able to tessellate even further, and go into my angle sum tessellation theory. So, I will see you all then. Fine. It's the end of the world as we know it. What the heck am I doing?